Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church of Plano. I'm Sarah Reiling, one of the worship associates and part of the team that works to bring the worship to you every week. Whether you're a member or a new visitor or an old visitor, we welcome you. Whether you're here in the sanctuary with us or watching online, we welcome all of who you are and all you dream of becoming.
So when Reverend Aya asked me to come on July 13th, I was very excited because I was like, oh, Bastille Day. That's tomorrow, not today, but. So as the story goes, in 1789, on July 14th, the common people in Paris stormed the prison, the Bastille, releasing the prisoners, of which there were 7, and demanding a new way of government that respected the rights of all people. A year later, July 14th, 1790, there was a large and public unity celebration, and the king took an oath to the new constitution. And what I want to lift up is that Bastille Day, our current Bastille Day, intentionally, specifically commemorates both of those events. Both of them. And so that it's a day that holds anger, action, and hope all together. Now we know that the ideals of liberty, fraternity, and equality did not easily come to pass. For almost a century after the French Revolution, the governments in France whipsawed back and forth from republic to monarchy to authoritarian empire, until France finally adopted a parliamentary system. And it was a hot mess. And in among all this hot mess, there were philosophers who were looking at all these social systems that exploited and controlled people. And they were wondering, what could we do differently? Because this is not okay. And Charles Fourier was one of these guys. There's some negative things about him that I'm not going to go into right now, but I just want to lift up that there are some negative things about him. But here's the belief that I want to focus on today. He thought there was already a divine order on earth, and we had only to live it with concern for one another and cooperation. The law of love animated his vision. He thought people would develop affection for one another and organize themselves in groups that supported a community as well as individual thriving, that they could enjoy the work that they were the most passionate about. And so he had a whole system of which human variety was key. It required a lot of people. He thought there would be about 1,600 community members that would be needed so that there would be enough complementary personalities and passions to serve everyone's needs. And so he had this whole thought process of making these communities. And his vision, women had equal rights, and he also thought that a variety of sexual orientations should be affirmed. So he was a very influential guy in the mid-1800s. And folks started to gather to practice his and other new ideas with small-scale communities. There were at least 80 communal experiments in the United States in the 1840s. And that includes one you might have heard of. It's in our Unitarian lineage, the Brook Farm community. This was founded by Unitarian minister George Ripley and his wife Sophia. And Ripley had in mind that he would create a place where everyone, regardless of gender or age, would get equal pay. And everyone could work at the thing that they wanted to work on. There would be complete intellectual freedom. And his idea was, we'll make this little community and the world will transform because of our example. Now, first of all, there was some bad soil. There was a smallpox outbreak. There were religious tensions based upon what were the services that were going to be. And then finally, in 1846, their uninsured building it burned down. And so the loss of that building was the end of that investment, of that experiment. But there was this Universalist minister who was part of the brick farm community, John Allen, and he was still dreaming. And as we know, Texas is a land of second chances. So soon Allen and Albert Brisbane, who was a very influential Fourierist, or as they called it, associationalism, they would represent the American side of a European-American venture founded in 1855 right here in North Texas, La Reunion. And yes, Reunion Tower is named after that community. The European side was a French immigrant named Victor Considerant. And he had been expelled from France, and so he needed to find something else. And so he traveled around, and he found North Texas, and he was enamored. He said, nature has done all. Texas has easy river access, highly fertile prairie lands, hummus that is 5 meters deep. He saw the native grapevines, and certainly we will be able to sustain ourselves by growing grapes and other fruit. Have you met those grapes? Anyone? And so it was that a group of primarily Swiss, Belgian, and French immigrants, who were Francophone folks, made the journey. They went from Europe to New Orleans, to Galveston, to Houston, and finally, by foot, to the banks of the Trinity River, to La Reunion, in what is now West Oak Cliff. There was a Polish engineer in the advanced team who left us a diary that gives us some insight into those early days. Of course, there was no lodging, and so people choosing their own work would have to wait a while. Everyone had to be carpenters. Farmers cooked, which was probably a good thing because the sun shriveled away everything that they tried to plant. Farmers also took care of the livestock. And who were the waiters? They were the doctor and the accountant. So as I mentioned about the soil, not only was it not 5 meters deep of humus, it was much more conducive for bricks and concrete than crops. So these people worked to try to build their community from 4 to 10 a.m. and then from 3 p.m. into the evening. However, Madame Considerant felt like there should be some joy and some beauty in this place. And so she created a salon near a copse of cedar trees. And here's a bit from the gentleman's diary. The floor was covered in a rug of natural green, for here the grass was always fresh. Above, the branches of trees spreading wide, their thick, broad leaves refreshed from time to time with benevolent dew. As a ceiling, we had the clear, ever-pleasant vault of heaven. The moon, or millions of glittering stars, shone so brilliantly, it was like our lamp. We had the twittering of birds. The rest period permitted us the luxury of reveling in the marvelously beautiful nights beneath the Texas sky. But all was not to be this harmony. The second wave of community members came, and they had already begun quarreling. There were factions about priorities. Shall we have a school? Shall we have a tannery? And there was purportedly direct democracy, but Considerant held all the purse strings, and so he specifically approved everything. And he didn't like all this. He became depressed, he avoided people, he became autocratic, and there was a spiral of distrust that resulted in a nervous gridlock within the community. And besides that, the Texans, as you know, it was a state of folks who enslaved other people, denounced them The Texas State Gazette called them an armed band of seditious, lawless, foreign abolitionists who were seeking to sap the foundations of society. And John Allen couldn't shut up about abolition. And then the fact that the colony held dances on Sundays certainly didn't help anything. And so you had this opposition from outside, the skills mismatch, and the weather, including an unexpected ice storm. Like the hot sun, and I didn't know about this. I'm from Houston. I didn't know that this is what Dallas was like. This community only lasted 18 months, and so ended yet another experiment in living by the law of love. But let's remember the ideal. People should be happy, they should be cared for, they should be thrived, no matter who they are. Liberty, equality, fraternity. Dr. Martin Luther King popularized a modern formulation, beloved community. And here's the definition from the King Center. Beloved community is a global vision in which all people can share in the wealth of the earth. In the beloved community, poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of human decency will not allow it. Racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood. Indeed, along with Rabbi Heschel, Unitarian Universalists also heeded Dr. King's call to pray with their feet and march alongside voter rights advocates at Selma as part of the process of building beloved communities. 1 in 5 parish ministers, so that was 131 parish ministers, joined 260 lay people in this radicalizing moment in history. It's a moment we're still fighting. Unlike our 19th century utopians who believed harmony through the divine order was inevitable, what we know is that beloved community doesn't just happen. We have to be in it. It involves sacrifice. We have to open our eyes and confront that which is death dealing in this world. And we're seeing it every day. We're seeing vandalism of our democratic ideals, vandalism of our social safety net. It's heavy. It's heavy. And so we wonder, what is ours to do? We can also hold anger, action, and hope together with a glue of love and compassion, and think, what did this lineage, is there any wisdom that they have for us, our utopian ancestors? And so let me start with variety, the affirmation of variety. I want to be real about it because, just as is common with modern Unitarian Universalism, La Réunion and Brook Farm residents were mainly white, mainly middle class. But they did believe that affirming variety strengthens community. We have, as Unitarian Universalists, a key value of pluralism. And the thing that's important to realize is that there's more to true welcome and affirmation than meets the eye. We need to really analyze our own organizational culture to figure out, why are the people who aren't here, who are the people who aren't here? Why aren't they here? Who do we want to be, right? Really looking at our culture to figure out how we can be pluralistic. It might mean having some of our people be in different rooms. It might be inviting the people that we meet in different rooms to do stuff with us. But the key is to intentionally hold and value multiple expressions of culture, not assimilate everybody into our culture. That's not pluralism. So let's talk about conflict, because we talked about a nervous gridlock at La Reunion. I'm sure each of us has felt that way sometime. Beloved community is not characterized by a lack of conflict. Conflict is healthy, friends. In fact, in pluralistic environments, we should expect conflict. And so what we do is we think about how we're going to deal with conflict. How will we stay together in conflict? We'll be compassionate. We'll listen to understand the other person. We'll stay in relationship. We will not resort to interpersonal or physical violence to resolve it. And in that way, even just the way that we approach conflict in our spaces, beloved community can be a daily way of living. So let's talk about engagement with the world. I kind of talked a little bit about it, but we need to engage with the whole world. We need to make our communities bigger. Ivone Gabarra, she was a nun. She worked with people in Brazilian communities that were directly impacted by environmental pollution and destruction. And what she learned was that those the most directly impacted also had the best understanding of the problems, and they had lots and lots of potential solutions. So compare that with Fourier. He had this highly structured system with very little flexibility, and his system had the assumptions from his own set of experiences. So I'd like to offer two learnings from this. Maybe we don't need to pull away and make something new and set an example. Maybe we want to engage directly with those who are impacted by what's going on in the world. And when we do that, have the humility to center their wisdom, to move in support rather running in with your own solution. I like to call it show up and listen and just shut up for the first few meetings. Significantly, those white folks who went to Selma from our Unitarian Universalists, they took direction from the Black organizers there. So as we think about how do we go in these communities or within our community, broadening our community, and work with folks, with partners, knowing yourself and what you have to offer helps. There is an instrument that I'd love to share with you that the UUA has that congregations can use to assess everything that you have to give so that you know when you talk to a partner what you can offer. So to shift gears a little bit, because the other thing that's really important is having an accurate read on facts. So Considerant was a promoter, and his information just didn't match the facts on the ground. Between the sun and the soil and the ice storms, his community was doomed before it began. And in fact, there's nothing left of this community. There's maybe one little marker because it was a quarry. It was used to make bricks and concrete. When you think about having a good read of the facts, it means consulting various sources, vetting your sources, and you might rely on your personal experience, but understand your own limitations. When I was with the Texas UU Justice Ministry, I was involved with a lot of partnerships. And there was one time where this one partner put out a call to action, and they said, call your legislator about this bill. And another partner was like, don't do anything. Just sit tight. Who was right? We have to do the work to be able to make the decision in that moment. And our accurate read on the facts includes understanding history. So Considerant wrote, nature had prepared all. He was wrong. He was at the banks of the Trinity River just a decade after the Caddo Village massacre. So nature hadn't prepared this. The militia cleared the people, and an army veteran cleared the trees and made the tracts to subdivide and sell. And so it wasn't nature, and it involved a horrible human price, like that they were sitting on land that involved that price. So my question is, what violence has been done and continues in our culture? Like, we see it every day. If you watch, Blue Sky, you can see what's going on. And how is your daily life connected to the violence? I believe that when we reflect on that, we can understand how we're interconnected, how the world we live in came to be, and where each of us is called to repair. So going back to Brook Farm, their final death now was an uninsured loss. Working to transform the world is not without risk. So our movements should be able to assess risk and provide multiple lanes so people can find their own place. Like, give people an on-ramp to do something. During COVID, if you remember the summer of 2020, there was an uprising for Black Lives. And there was a group called the Movement for Black Lives, which is an excellent group. And they considered health, police targets and all of this. And when they put out actions, they had red light, yellow light, green light. And said, this is the risks with this, safest. And they said, pick your lane based on your own personal factors and your own risk assessment, because the fact is, we really do need everybody. And so when we are working, we can think, what is the lane we want to be in? Maybe stretch it a little bit and communicate, right? What the action that you want to do, the implications. And think about who's most vulnerable, because sometimes, speaking as a white person, white folks can go out and they can do stuff that harm other people, not understanding their own privilege. It happens. So finally, I just really want to say and lift up that salon. We need to hold room for joy. This is long-term work. We might not even see a more just society as much as we work for it. Rabbi Heschel talks about tasting. Have a little taste of the world to come so that you know what to do when it's there, so that you can start to create it. Spiritual practices give us strength and they expand our imagination. And so I would urge you to really think about your spiritual practices and lean into them so that we can dream, we can imagine, we have a well for our commitment to compassionate and courageous living. Because I believe, this is my faith, beloved community is possible. As Sister Guerrera said, we are here because we love life. We do not want to see it snuffed out. We can dismantle racism, authoritarianism. We're practicing right now. And so let us make it so, beloveds. Let us make it so. As you return to ordinary time, as you move into the everyday world, may you carry your dream for the world to come. May you live your love out loud in the world that is, that we may create day by day beloved community.